We're all here trying to figure out what the BF is post-rotation, and that oftentimes will be the deck that lost the least. But what about the decks that were previously super good that lost the most? So today I want to take a look at some of those decks that previously were super good, but have already been kind of written off because they seemingly have lost a lot of cards, and I want to show some of my lists I have for these archetypes. The first deck I want to talk about is Gardevoir EX. When Jake Gearhart said Iron Hands kills Gardevoir, he might have been talking about rotation, but we're not quite sure yet. Gardevoir is hit extremely hard by rotation. It loses Mirage Step, it loses Shining Arcana, Zacian, Fog Crystal, Level Ball, just a lot of the best attackers and a lot of the best consistency that made the deck super good. So that kind of has to go a facelift post-rotation, and this is what I think it might look like. This is based off some City League winning lists. We have to really depend on Drifloon and Screamtail to get the job done, which is kind of sketchy. And we do have Fluttermane to maybe sit behind in the early game, because like Gardevoir is known for being a slower deck, but maybe without Mirage Step, without those big attackers, it kind of necessarily has to be faster. One cool thing is this is a Arven TM evolution deck. Like before, Guardy really wanted to go first, but now it, like, in order to get going quickly, we have to play Arven and TM evolution so we can start getting our Gardevoirs going turn 2. So that's why I'm playing 2 evolution TMs. Like, even though we're probably only ever using one in a game, it's just so integral. Like, if we whiff it and we don't evo, most of the time we're gonna lose those games. So really the rest of this list is just trying to set up. Like, we're playing Earthen Vessels now that Fog Crystal's gone, which feels kind of weird. There's Poffin and Ultra Ball and Great Ball and Nest Ball to just try to get all of our dudes down. There is a damage pump in here over something like a Champions Festival, so we can get our Drifloon to reach 330 damage. And we have our tool cards in here, the support tools like Luxurious Cape, Hero Cape, and Bravery Charm, just so our Drifloon and Screamtail can hit some bigger numbers and hopefully be one-shotting Pokemon. I was messing around with this deck on Limitless Tabletop, and I thought it was going to be kind of gross, but actually I was kind of pleasantly surprised on how consistent it was. Those games that you do with the early Arven do feel really sketchy, and this deck could definitely be pretty weak to some early game aggression. But I think there is definitely something here with Gardevoir. I don't think it's totally dead post-rotation. I'm sure the perfect list is out there, will definitely be viable. The next deck I want to talk about is Miraidon. And Miraidon may not have lost the sheer quantity of cards that Gardevoir did, but the ones that it did lose were pretty important. The main one being Flaffy, just making it so you can't keep energies in play quite as well. There also are some lesser ones like Escape Rope or Path to the Peak. So now without Flaffy, you really can't use Raichu as a big damage option. We could go with Regieleki and just try to build up some of those and hopefully buff our Miraidon's damage that way, but that sounds kind of inconsistent. The approach I want to go with is a much more disruptive style. Judge Path doesn't exist anymore. You could still use Airy plus Grabber plus early aggression from something like a Raikou or a Luxray. Airy lets us peek at our opponent's hand and discard 2 items we find there. So if we're getting rid of rare candies or ball search cards or Mirage Gates, plus simultaneously putting pressure on our opponent, then hopefully we can get off to an early enough of a lead that we can maintain in the prize race until the end game. We are playing the Grabbers as well, because if our opponent knows we're playing Airy and they want to like play their Ultra Balls early, find their Pokemon so we can't Airy away their search cards, what if we just played a Grabber and put that thing to the bottom of the deck? That sounds pretty cool to me. And then if we like combine Airy alongside Luxray V, ideally our opponent will just have no good options in their hands that will have like gotten rid of all their good cards, and they'll just start dead drawing, and we can maybe just speed ahead in the game with an Iron Hands. We are playing like Trekking Shoes in here to like try to be pretty consistent and going quickly, which also has some cool synergy with the Codebreaker solution that lets us stack 2 cards on top of our deck. It could guarantee a generator hits, it could be Prime Catcher, it could be Grabber, and then like we could put those cards on top of the deck and then Trekking Shoes and immediately draw it into them, or use Mew EX and immediately draw into them. So I think Miraidon does definitely have a chance post-rotation. There's just like no big damage in this list, which is kind of concerning. Like if a Charizard can get going eventually, definitely could struggle to take knockouts into the end game. One thing we could do is try to play one Raichu V as like kind of a finisher, and like ideally we get off to a fast enough start, slow them down enough that like Raichu can come in and close out the game. And also like Lost Vacuum as a card sounds kind of scary because we're relying on EXP share for maintaining energies. So there are definitely flaws with Miraidon. It's not going to be anywhere close to what it used to be. I think it still has a chance, and I like this idea, this approach a lot more than I like Regieleki. Next, I want to talk about Giratina V-Star. And on paper, Giratina doesn't lose much, really only Battle Pass and Path to the Peak, but those cards are massive. Buddy Poffin is not the same as Battle Pass in this deck because it does not find Giratina Vs, and Past the Peak means we don't have that insane Roxanne Path comeback option, so we sort of necessarily have to be more consistent to make up for that fact. So the list I have here today is just literally a max consistency team list. There's like no tech cards in here. We are just trying to get into the game and just get into the game, start using Lost Impact, start using Cram, Sableye, all of our cool, fun attackers. Really the only card that you could say is a tech in this list is Iron Leaves EX. I think we need that to stand a chance up against Charizard, because then we can use Star Requiem to KO one, and then we can use Iron Leaves to KO another one, and then hopefully Cram and Sableye can find one prize each, or maybe even a Lost Impact on a Pidgeot or something. I do think Giratina has kind of a strange matchup spread post-rotation. Snorlax actually gets kind of flipped into a bad matchup because we play no sort of way to bounce Temple of Sinnoh, so that's pretty bad news. I don't really want to be playing stadiums either because the stadium options do kind of suck. Like Temple of Sinnoh seems kind of bad. We need to use Iron Leaves to one-shot like a Zard with a Mist energy on it. Each court like helps the opponent. Artisan helps the opponent, so it's like nothing really sounds great. Giratina has been doing better than the other two decks that we've mentioned so far in Japan, so I don't think it's like really like dead by any means, but it's definitely taken a hit, and I think it kind of could struggle into the future meta, like into Lugia, into Block Snorlax, maybe even into some like future Iron Hands decks that can just go way faster than you can. Like, Giratina, I feel like it still has a chance, but it's definitely not nearly as good of one. It's like, it's not in the conversation for the best second format like it was pre-rotation. So those were the three decks I wanted to talk about today. They're definitely all weaker, but I think they still have options to potentially succeed next format. And I did happen to recently make a tier list video, and I ranked the decks that you saw here today, as well as all the other new decks that we'll be potentially seeing. So if you wanted to see that video, click on it right here on your screen right now. And I might have put your favorite deck in F tier, so you better go check it out.